You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith Johnson.
The AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California. Presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AfterBuzz TV's Extreme Weight Loss After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's Extreme Weight Loss After Show.
I love this song. Amazing choice. Welcome everybody to Season 3, Episode 3 of Extreme Makeover Weight Loss Edition. For those of you that may be joining us for the first time, like I said, this is Episode 3, and this is what I think might be the most emotional episode, hopefully of the season, but probably ever. So thank you again for joining us. My name is Lauren Mendoza, and joining me today in our booth is, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Steve. I'm the guy in the booth.
You're the guy in the booth. Everybody knows you. So Steve, you are joining me today, and you're joining me because you yourself have a lot of knowledge in this area in terms of weight loss, nutrition, all of that, kind of your own experience, right?
Yeah, I've been through the whole being overweight and then losing it and then trying to get away from the excess skin and doing all that.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It is tough. So I'm going to be bouncing off of you today and trying to get kind of your input because I understand this whole experience as well. So getting right into our episode, we meet Ryan. Ryan is a 23-year-old who weighs in at 410 pounds right off the bat. And what we learn of Ryan from the very beginning is that he has one arm. And we learned that 2 years before taping this, he lost his arm in a really tragic car accident. So, you know, right away we learn about his story and what he's been through. And, you know, he talks about it a lot. He's really open about it. And he talks about how with that he lost a lot of motivation. We learned that he went to culinary arts school before that. And once he lost his arm, he had to go back home. And in doing that, I think he just completely lost all motivation and inspiration for kind of moving forward. And it's really heartbreaking to see. And I think even if he didn't say that he lost all this motivation, you could just kind of see it in his face. In the very beginning, we meet his parents, who his dad takes him back to the scene of the car accident and kind of relives this with him. And it's really sad to kind of hear his dad's perspective on the experience and going to the scene of the accident and seeing the car and not really knowing if his son was dead or alive. And the day was so foggy that they couldn't helicopter him into the hospital. And it turns out that once they got him there, I guess the wound was about 6 inches from his heart. And really, the doctors all believe that he should have been dead, that he should have lost his life. You know, he should have bled out. And so really, though Ryan is really not motivated anymore, he's still kind of looking at this as a second chance at life and is kind of really worried that he's failing at it, that he's not giving it his best, which I think a lot of us can kind of relate to, you know, that lack of motivation and that kind of worrying about, you know, are we not living life to our fullest? Are we not living life to our full potential? And I think people with weight loss issues in particular really have that feeling. What do you think, Steve?
I mean, it is tough. It's tough, especially when you're put in a position where you do lose a limb. And I mean, there's phantom pains that people experience. There's, of course, the loss of the motivation because, like, even if you go for a week running every day, if your ankles hurt, if anything hurts, you wake up and you're like, yeah, I don't want to go for a run today. You know, I'll do it tomorrow. And then it comes into I'll do it tomorrow. It's really tough to self-motivate, and this is what this kind of show is really good for, is getting people the motivation they need, because once there's a hump, there's the 3-month hump. You work out for 3 months, and for 3 months you're actually gaining weight, and that is the most annoying feeling.
Or you're fluctuating and you're plateauing and you don't really know. And I think you're still trying to get your routine down. And the interesting thing about Ryan that we learn about him is that not only is he a major diehard football fan, which we learned that right away, he's a huge Packers fan. And he talks about, being a Packers fan isn't just about being a fan, it's about a lifestyle. And I'm sure any football fan can really relate to that. But not only is he a fan, but he was also a high school athlete. So he played football in high school. And I think for anybody that was once an athlete, I know for myself, back in high school, you did it because, you went up for the team and you were listening to your coach. So you just kind of went along with it. Once you leave athletics, it's that much harder to actually force yourself to really work out and to get yourself into a routine. And like you said, to really self-motivate. So then you combine just that struggle alone and doing it on your own and not being pushed to do it, then you lose a limb. And even if you were in some kind of exercise routine, like you said, if you were running every day and then you sprain your ankle, you just lose this motivation. I know for myself, I was really in a great routine and I fell and I hurt my rib. And I will never forget this because I felt like I couldn't work out as hard as I could. And that alone it was almost depressing. Like it really kind of puts you down and it's harder to move forward because you can't move on with as much strength as you had, I guess is how I feel about it. But getting more into Ryan, we also meet his parents, like I said. And one of the hardest parts for me in this episode was his mother, who was trying to put his prosthetic arm around his chest. Well, basically, it was a strap that comes around his chest. And she couldn't do it, and she was visibly frustrated. And she's pulling the strap over, and she's saying, with the rolls and with all this extra weight, we really can't get it on him. And, we paid all this money for this prosthetic arm, and for him to not lose the weight, it's just really frustrating. And it's in her face. She almost looks upset and mad at her son. And that, I think, was one of the hardest parts because he's standing there while his mom is trying to put this strap around him, just kind of looking at her. And she says, we even tried to not put the prosthetic on for a while, thinking that we could motivate and encourage him to lose the weight, but he didn't do it. And he kind of snaps back and says, well, you really didn't encourage me and it really wasn't motivating. And it was almost like they had this little argument right in front of the camera, almost even awkward, but it was just heartbreaking to see that his mother was so frustrated that he hasn't lost weight. She even made a comment like, he came back here, he doesn't have a job, he doesn't go to school, and he hasn't lost the weight. And she just seems so upset with him. And I think too, as a son, who's already been through a lot, then your mother who is trying to motivate you, which we saw this in, I think it was the premiere episode, the father who, they think they're motivating their kids or they think they're being encouraging, but they're visibly upset with them. They're not really coming from a positive place. And you could tell, and I know personally, if that's how someone's going to approach me about my weight or my exercise, it's only going to make me feel worse about myself. And I think this was very obvious with Ryan. And I hate to say it, I think it was kind of a setback. It obviously wasn't pushing him forward. So we see him go to the Green Bay Packers Hall of Fame with his family, and that is where Chris Powell, the host of the show, the trainer, he comes in and surprises him and lets him know that, he's going to go on this year-long journey with him. And right away, he asks him, before he even weighs him in to find out the 410 pounds, he asks Ryan, what is your goal? And Ryan's goal is 195 pounds, which at 410 pounds, that could just seem so far away. But in addition to that, Chris also says, I don't want you to just focus on your weight. I want to know, what are your life goals aside from weight loss? Like, what do you want to do? What is something that you've always really wanted? And I think if you ask that question, like, Steve, could you even answer that question? I think it's a loaded question, but if there was one thing maybe that you could pick, do you have that answer?
Well, I had to think about this when I was losing the weight, and my answer was I want to be a father later in life that's always outdoors and is always in shape. Like, that was my goal.
Right.
Like, my goal is, if I don't change my health now, it's going to affect me for the rest of my life. So, like, a lot of people, they need to set a goal that's going to be something that they can be proud of themselves for, as opposed to just like a generic, like, I don't know what's going to happen when I lose the weight. Like, I don't really have an aim, because the thing about weight loss is too that you don't, it's hard for the parents, because it's hard to gain respect from other people if you don't have self-respect.
Right.
And when you weigh so much, you get very into yourself with depression, you get very into yourself with looking down on yourself, and it's very difficult to respect yourself. So when you lose it, as you lose it, it really boosts your confidence, and it really has other people believe in you more. So it's important to do it, but it's really hard to start.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to have other goals too, to kind of look outside of this whole weight loss journey and kind of even have small goals that you want to reach forward, and move towards. But one of his goals, which, like I said, I think when you're asked that question, aside from the weight loss, what other goals? Like, pick another goal that you want to be kind of focused on. And for me, I automatically think of like career goals. Like, I thought, his mom says he doesn't have a job, he hasn't gone to school, he quit culinary school. Maybe that might be something that he wants to get back into. I'm thinking of something along those lines. But his goal is to ride a bike without training wheels. So I guess he, was trying to learn when he was younger, but just never got the balance. And that was even before when he had 2 arms, So his fear has always been like, if I can't do this with 2 arms, there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to do this with 1. And it was just a quick answer, and it was as simple as riding a bike. And automatically I thought, look at all the things that we kind of take for granted. I mean, I know there's other people in the world that don't know how to ride a bike, but that's his big goal, and he knew it so quickly. And I don't know, that just kind of hit me really hard, because I thought, oh, I've been riding a bike for a really long time. And that was his goal. And I thought, wow, that's a big goal. I think a big fear to kind of get over.
That's a really good short-term goal to have, though, too, because when your goals are fitness oriented, it pushes you to further ones. Like my first goal, if you're thinking like short-term, was I wanted to be able to run a mile without stopping.
Yeah.
I had never in my life been able to do that, even through school, even when I was not in shape, even when I was in shape. So like that was like the goal. And then when you get that, it pushes you to go like, well, I want to run it faster. I want to do it faster. Like if now he's riding a bike, okay, well, maybe he wants to try mountain biking. Maybe he wants to do more activities centered around the talent that he's so proud of actually being able to accomplish.
Right. No, I completely agree. And we will get to his bike riding goals later on in this episode. But another part in this very beginning stages of his journey, it's very obvious in the beginning that Ryan really identifies with the fact that he lost his limb, as I think anybody would. I think there are times, when we feel bad for ourselves, or we've been in a really awful situation and, we're lacking motivation, and we feel sorry for ourselves. Even if we can't admit that we feel sorry for ourselves, I think we really do. And he, Ryan admitted he feels different. He feels like no one's going to want me. Now I'm big and I have 1 arm. Like, no one's going to want me. And he feels sorry for himself, and he's kind of in his own like self-pity and can't kind of bring himself out of that. And it was really important, I think, for Chris to address the fact that you are no different than anybody else. You lost a limb, but you still have your life. And you could keep going. You can do everything that anybody else could for the most part, and I'm not going to treat you any differently. So I don't want you to think of yourself any differently. So, I think it was really important for Chris to kind of address the fact that he needs to separate himself from that identity of, I lost a limb, and just being somebody with 1 arm and, having a handicap and not being able to do what everybody else can do. And I thought that was a really, big and necessary step that they had to take. And then, of course, in those very few first days, Chris brings him into boot camp, and the first thing he has him do pretty much is get on an exercise bike. And right away, and I was actually kind of surprised, Ryan was scared. He looked at it, he kind of didn't get on it right away. And I'm thinking, why are you scared? I mean, it's a stationary bike. You're not going to fall, you're not going to move, but it's just almost this really deep fear that he's had because he hasn't been able to ride a bike at all. And, he's not exercising. So he just immediately had this fear. And it was really interesting to see. But you know what? He got on the bike and he rode and he did what Chris told him. And so that right there was kind of his first fear that was conquered, which was really great. Also in these first stages, what's really important aside from exercise is always going to be nutrition. And it's just as important, I think, possibly more important than the exercise element is learning about nutrition. So Chris takes Ryan to go see Paulette, the nutritionist on hand, and she teaches him about grilled shrimp. And part of the reason she introduces him to grilled shrimp is because as a Packers fan, he is tailgating quite often. So they're trying to introduce him to kind of newer varieties of things that he can grill while out there tailgating for these games. So I really thought that he would kind of jump into the whole nutrition element, right when he started to learn about nutrition, learn healthier options. I thought that was something he would actually really excel at because he went to culinary school. So that food and cooking is going to be a passion of his. So I thought this would be something that he really embraced. But it turns out that he, we'll see later on in the episode that this was actually probably his biggest struggle, was the nutrition element. What do you think, Steve? Do you think nutrition or exercise, what for you has been harder to kind of incorporate into your life? Or is it both?
Exercise is the biggest first step. If you're not active, you won't really be able to affect your body in the way you would want to do it. Of course, the best option is diet and exercise, but at the same time, when you're someone who's 400 pounds, like, you need something harsh like that. But when I was losing the weight, it was strictly exercise. Very minimal changes to my diet. Because as someone, like, especially I wanted to go to culinary school too. I love food. So it's difficult when you love food to give it up. And then as soon as you lose the weight, if you go back to your old diet and you depended on your diet to lose the weight, you'll just start getting it back.
Yeah.
So it's really important to be able to balance it with a diet that you can sustain for a long time without totally getting rid of everything that you love to eat, because otherwise you're just setting yourself up for failure later when you decide, oh, I'm skinny enough, I can go back into this, because it will. Like the Atkins diet, the things like no carbs, they bite you in the ass as soon as you go off of them.
Well, and I think you made a really good point, what you said in terms of getting started with your exercise. And for me, I know that when I do exercise, I'm so much more motivated. And, we all know that exercise increases your endorphins, so you're naturally happier. You're kind of, they call it a runner's high, but even if you're not a runner, just kind of exercising, even with the first workout, you already start to kind of feel healthier and you start to believe that this is something, okay, I could do it. I got through one workout, I just got to get through the next. And you can take it one workout at a time. And I think once you start doing that, you do start to rethink what you're eating, because you work so hard, you don't want to go back on that. You don't want to sabotage yourself. So I think, when you're more motivated and once you kind of take that first step in getting active, you're also more motivated to eat better. You want to make those workouts count. So I think that's a really good point, It
also helps to guilt yourself a little bit. I mean, honestly, with working out and things.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that helped me at the time is I bought a calendar, and every day that I ran, every day that I worked out, I put a big X on the day. And for every day that there wasn't an X, I felt bad about it. And you kind of get into that routine, like, well, I don't want to feel bad about it. I don't want this calendar to be empty. So you just start doing that. You start doing it more and more, and you start realizing that there's less and less days that don't have an X on it. And you start noticing you're a lot healthier.
Yeah, I think that definitely works for a lot of people. I've heard that. But after he goes to the nutritionist, we see Ryan go to the doctor. And this is a really interesting doctor visit because we learn that he has high levels of prolactin hormone in the brain. And the doctor does kind of explain that this is something that they have seen often in people that are overweight. And he says that it could be a tumor. And right away, Ryan's face just kind of goes blank and he looks shocked. And I think everybody was shocked, but he's almost kind of zoning out the doctor to the point that the doctor's like, Brian, are you okay? And he's just kind of taken back and doesn't really know how to respond, which I think any of us would be when we hear those words. And this could always be the editing of the show, but they really just kind of blew this up in a way that they, talked about the possibility of it being a tumor. And then, you see Ryan really breaking down. And, I have to kind of feel for him because he's somebody that's already been through something so tragic. And then to hear that he could possibly have a tumor and would have to undergo brain surgery, if that was the case. To hear those things, I mean, it's just another setback. It's just another thing to kind of kick you while you're down, kick you while you're trying to get up. And so, I felt throughout this entire episode that we're really feeling everything that Ryan's kind of feeling and really kind of going through it with him. So that was a really scary moment. I mean, we see him break down, we see him cry, but we come back from commercial and they give him the MRI results, and then he's sitting there with the doctor, and we learned that luckily he has no tumor. Thank God. You know, he was obviously relieved, as was I, as I'm sure everybody was at home. And I think he really looked at this as another second chance, you know? No tumor, I'm going to keep going. So that was a really pivotal moment. But regardless, he did have these high-level hormones, so he does have to take medication. But that's, you know, something that can be worked on. Right from this boot camp, after the doctor, after the nutritionist, he goes home to find that his home living room has now been renovated, as we have seen with all these other contestants, to have his own home gym. You know, a lot of people can't afford a gym membership, so this is kind of the way to do it. And it was really kind of amazing because Chris, in this very first phase, lives with Ryan at home. And the best part was Chris waking up with his little flip cam that he uses and looking over at the bed across from him and seeing that Ryan is nowhere to be found. Well, sure enough, he hears the treadmill, and Ryan is up at 6 a.m. all alone doing it day one by himself. That was big for me, and what I thought when I saw that was, this guy was an athlete. You know, this guy really wants this, and he's really motivated to do it. I'm sorry, I don't know anybody that would get up on their own, that's at 410 pounds, just starting their workout routine and doing it with a coach, and they're already taking it into their own hands. They're getting up at 6 a.m. without their coach, and they're starting. And I think that right there, I was like, okay, this guy's going to kill it in this episode. I already knew it. I personally, getting up at that is really tough. And one thing that really impresses me about this guy is that you'll see throughout the episode, he's just so positive. You know, I personally, if somebody's going to push me to work out, I'm probably going to kind of like grunt and groan about it. Even though I think I'm athletic and I know I can do it and I actually enjoy it, there are times when I just don't want to do it, and I think I'm so exaggerative that I will just be like, oh, I don't want to do it, and I'll kind of complain about it. But this guy, no, Ryan kind of just gets up and does it, and he, I think, really resembles a true athlete in my mind.
Well, he also now has this, he has this outsized source, like a coach, like you were saying, a coach, to try to make proud. Because when you're around your family so much, anything they say, you kind of blow it off.
Yeah.
Because you're like, you've been around them so much, you know that they'll love you no matter what, like, because they always tell you that and all that. But then when you actually have somebody outside who you want to, who's trying to help you, you don't want to let them down. Like, it gives you that kind of push, because you don't want to feel like that guy who let them down.
I agree with you, but I think I can see feeling that way, but I still think, like, if I were in this position, I think any normal person or most people, they might be gung-ho about it and really, you know, enthusiastic about losing the weight, and they don't want to let anybody down. But to get up and do it yourself rather than just waking up when he tells you to wake up and getting up with a positive attitude and kind of going at it full force, that's what I would expect, and that I would still be impressed by that. But to just do it on your own and get up, like, from the very beginning, I don't know, that's just something I don't think you see in a lot of people. That's a different kind of motivation, and that is the kind of person that you know is going to succeed. And I think you also know that they're going to maintain it. Like, he just seems the kind of person that wants it so bad, and that he can do it by himself. Here he's getting up and doing it alone, that he will do it, that he really just kind of wants that person by his side. You know, not necessarily someone making him do it, but just somebody kind of standing there as the support. And I think that's more of how he's using Chris in this episode. So in this first 90 days, he takes the goal of losing 111 pounds. And, you know, he's given that goal, and that's a big goal. And he just says, you know, let's do it. And if he succeeds, he's going to get season tickets to the Green Bay Packers. And right away, he's excited. In those first 90 days or so, or even in the first 70 days, Chris actually challenges him to get on a bike for the first time. And you could tell he's scared, and he's definitely a little hesitant and really is nervous about falling, because the thing with only having one arm is that he can't really break his own fall. You know, he can't put his hand down if he falls on that side. And you know, he only has one arm left, and if he falls on the side with his arm, what if he breaks it? You know, he's a heavy guy coming down on one arm. He has that fear of breaking the only arm that he has left. So there's a lot of fear going into this first attempt. And we see him get up on the bike. Chris is obviously standing there and kind of coaching him through and supporting him, promising him, I'm not going to let you fall. I'm not going to let you fall. Well, he's doing okay, and at one point he really has it, and he's going, and everybody's crying, and it's really kind of a great moment. And then, of course, you know, he does fall. He falls, he scrapes himself, he's definitely shaken, but the best thing about him is that he gets back up, and even though, you know, he questions Chris, like, you promised you wouldn't let me fall. I mean, I couldn't help but think, you're learning to ride a bike, doesn't matter if you have two arms or one arm or no arms, like, you will fall if you're learning to ride a bike at some point, and that's inevitable, and you have to kind of know that going into it. But you know what?
Biking's really his only option, though. I mean, aside from a sit-down pedaling machine, like, when people are overweight, it's really hard on their knees, and to lose weight, it's people usually tell you, oh, run. Okay, well, if you're overweight, if you're that heavy, you cannot run.
Right, but if you're that heavy, you can do a significant amount of, you know, work on yourself and just walking fast. And if you get into a good routine, I mean, obviously you're going to lose a lot of weight. It might take you a little bit longer, but you'll lose the weight and you can eventually run. And I think that was something he was comfortable with. I mean, we saw him get on the treadmill. We saw him walk. And getting on a bike, I mean, that's hard. That's really hard. And you know what? He got back up and he acknowledged that. He said, you know what, I fell, but the important thing is that I got back up. And he said, you know what, let's do it again. And I thought that was the best part, because not only did he just get back up, but he wanted to, let's try it again. Let's keep going. And that just, to me, just really kind of defines his character throughout this entire episode. So go ahead.
What I was saying is just that it's tough. Like, even walking fast, like on cement, the treadmill's great. If you tried that on cement, if you didn't have the treadmill, it'd be really tough. And usually people who are at that weight, they're encouraged, like, swimming. Swimming is a really thing.
Yes, that's what I was going to say, swimming.
But without the arm, like, that's very, very difficult. So he is in a very difficult position to lose the weight on his own. And if he can't afford his own treadmill, if he can't get motivated to get a treadmill, like, it's very important to have this.
Yeah, well, he was in a very lucky situation, as everybody is on the show, that they are given. They are given a treadmill. They are hooked up with all kinds of equipment. So yes, we see him tackle his bike fear, which is absolutely amazing. And then he goes into his weigh-in. At his 90-day weigh-in, we remember his goal was to lose 111 pounds, which means he would have to be at 299. He weighs in at 298. So he beats his goal by 1 pound, and he gets his season tickets to the Green Bay Packers. So he is ultra excited. Now, before we go into phase 2, I want to take a second to remind you guys and thank you guys who are watching on YouTube, commenting as well, and also to those of you who are subscribing on iTunes. iTunes is definitely the way to do it. If you want to stay posted on all of these podcasts, just subscribe and they will download automatically, and you can catch up with us, comment, and rate us. So I just want to give a quick shout out to all of those who are subscribing and who are watching on YouTube and say thank you, and leave your comments, because I think this was probably one of the most inspirational episodes. So I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say, and maybe we could chat about it briefly in the next episode. Going into phase 2, he has a new goal. A little bit of a lighter goal, as would be expected. He is asked to lose 60 pounds. And you know what? When he's given these goals, it doesn't even faze him. He doesn't even make any face like, oh, God, like, oh, that sounds so hard. It's almost like, okay, totally fine. Let's go. And every time he's given a challenge, his response is always like, get her done, or let's do it, or something like that. And he is just so positive, which he just kind of continues to amaze me throughout this entire episode. But also in that phase 2 goal, Chris tells him that at the end of phase 2, he wants to challenge him to do a bike ride with him. Which we saw in the previous episodes, they did a marathon. So this one is going to be a bike ride from LA to San Diego. That's no short bike ride.
No, that's not.
Let me tell you, even if you are, you know, someone that knows how to ride a bike or rides a bike every now and then, if you are not like a professional cyclist, that's going to be a challenge no matter what. So that was one challenge that Chris said that he kind of was like, oh, okay, you know, kind of surprised by it, but even at that moment, he didn't really turn it down, and didn't really, he never has anything negative to say, which is what really impresses me. No excuses for this guy. The bigger challenge in phase 2 is that we see Chris leave his home. So Ryan is left to kind of do this on his own and take everything that he's learned and put it into practice. So he's left alone, but we also see Chris can check in on him on webcam. I personally don't remember these in the last couple episodes, but it was definitely interesting to see what Chris saw. He saw that while Ryan was killing it in the gym and even practicing on his bike, he was just downing like shake after shake, that he wasn't really actually seeing him eat food. And Chris really noticed that to be a problem. And then there was a part where Ryan reaches out to Chris and, points out that he's losing his hair. He's actually having hair come out of his head and he's having headaches. And Chris was just kind of shocked. And he straight out said, America, to anybody that's having this problem, this is not a normal problem. Don't take it lightly. So Chris takes it into his own hands and goes over to Ryan's house and has a good sit down talk with him and finds out that he is actually not, it's not just that he's only eating shakes, but it's also that he's not eating enough calories. He's really only eating 1,200 to 1,500 calories in a day. And for a guy who at this point is 298 pounds, I mean, that's nothing. That is nothing. Like, I think 1,200 is low for even like a woman at 140. Okay. So that is not acceptable. And that really explains the headaches, the hair loss, and Chris really encourages him that you really need to get your nutrition under control. You need to start cooking for yourself. You need real foods. You can't be drinking your calories. You need to actually eat some of that. So thinking that he has his nutrition in control, they get right back into the exercise game and they take him to fight training, where Clay Matthews, the linebacker of the Green Bay Packers, shows up. So obviously Ryan is just kind of taken back and shocked and surprised and happy that he's there. So Clay Matthews trains with him for the day. They're throwing punches. He's like doing that, that exercise with the jump rope, or not the jump rope, I'm sorry, those weighted ropes where he's just kind of like flipping it up and down.
That will tire you out.
I want to do that. That looks really challenging and really awesome.
It seriously tires you out. You set time limits for yourself and you're just like dead by the end of it.
Well, it was kind of great because Clay Matthews, is telling him what to do. And Ryan's like, okay, are you going to tell me when to go? Because I'll go all day. That's literally what he said. I will go all day, but you just tell me what you need from me. And I just thought, there he is again, after already working out for who knows how long, red in the face, drenched in sweat. He's just like, I'll go all day. Like, keep it coming. And it's just so visible to me how much of an athlete this guy is and how much this has just kind of been inside of him, and all he needed was somebody to just be like, hey, you can do this. Like, you're no different than anybody else. Let's try this. That's really all he needed, and he's all for it. And he jumps right in, and he kind of goes with it. So he's just so impressive to me. After that, Ryan, this is actually a big moment as well. Ryan sits down and talks with Chris and brings up this whole challenge of riding from LA to San Diego. And I thought this was actually really impressive because Ryan was kind of stern with Chris. And I thought, like, that's kind of, I don't know, for me, I think that takes a little bit of bravery to talk to somebody who's essentially coaching you and challenging you. And there's a camera in your face. I thought it took a lot of courage for him to actually tell Ryan that, he's really concerned. He doesn't think that he's ready for this, that, if he breaks his arm, he straight out says to Chris, so Chris, if I break my arm, are you going to be here nursing me while I have to get over that? And, Chris can't say yes to that. No, he's not going to be there for him. So, Ryan says that he's feeling overwhelmed. While, Chris has to be kind of compassionate and being really understanding of him, he doesn't want to let him give up. He doesn't want to let this go. So Chris says, if all you're asking is for more time, then that's totally fine. Let's agree to that. And Ryan agrees to that. Chris agrees to that. So that's what they go for. Then we get to the 6-month weigh-in. So at that 6-month weigh-in, he was challenged to lose 60 pounds. His goal would be 238. And he weighs in at 232. He is hitting these goals by over just a few pounds, but nonetheless, just like killing it, like hitting these goals. It's actually kind of fascinating to me. So he loses 66 pounds. And before moving forward, his goal from then is to just lose 27, which at this point seems kind of like a breeze. And you're thinking, okay, so, in another 90 days, 27 pounds, he's going to be pretty much at his goal weight. So I was kind of interested to see how the rest of this time was going to play out, or at the very end, would he just completely surpass this by a crazy amount? In this next 6 months, we learn that Ryan has suffered a loss in his family. He loses his uncle, who died at age 43 of a heart attack. And this is something that, really affects him. And while he's not going to be doing this LA to San Diego bike ride, Chris challenges him to instead bike ride 43 miles in honor of the 43 years that his uncle lived. And while Chris can't join him on this bike ride, he then brings in Donald Driver, who is the former wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers and also Dancing with the Stars champion. And once again, of course, Ryan is just completely taken back and shocked and surprised and happy to have him there. So we see them get on the bikes. They have these shirts in honor of his uncle, which is really cute. And they get on this track and they just start kind of taking laps. And one thing that Chris points out, which, I thought was, very understandable, he's riding with one arm. Okay, Ryan is riding with one arm, so he can't like stop and drink water. He can't be drinking water as he goes. So they kind of have to set goals that, every 10 miles, which I think is what they set, that he would actually stop, take a breather and down some water and then get back up. So, that's just one thing that just another challenge that he has to face, because of only having one arm, because of his disability. We see him ride around and he's just doing it with ease, which that's what I find to be so amazing. It's like, we saw him struggling, we saw him fall, we saw him continue to practice. And now, not only is he just lapping this track with ease, he's just chatting away with Donald Driver right by his side, hitting the 10-mile mark, and it's just not even fazing him. And I just thought, like, that's huge. It's almost as if he for a while, didn't even realize the extent of what he was actually doing or the goal that he was achieving at the time. So I thought that was actually really amazing. But then you'll see around 32 miles, and it's getting late. It's starting to get windy. He's definitely starting to get tired. And at 33 miles, we see him just completely fall. It almost looked like he passed out at one point, which was definitely really scary. But he falls and he actually sits back up really, really quickly, but he sits there for a while. He's definitely shaken up, and he looked like he was going to quit. He definitely looked like he was going to quit, but, Donald Driver just kind of put his arms around him right away and was like, this isn't the end. You can keep going. You're okay. You're okay. Nothing was broken. His arm wasn't hurt. It's just another fall, but another opportunity for you to get back up and keep going. And that's, of course, in true Ryan fashion, that's exactly what he did. And he got back up and finished those last 10 miles. And he did it for his uncle. And at the very end, his family was there, Donald was there, Chris was there, and everybody was really emotional and definitely really proud. And I think that was really his big goal of this entire challenge, was not only did he learn how to ride a bike, he rode it for 43 miles, and he's already hit all of these weight loss goals. So that was definitely a big moment that I thought, like, what more could this episode really bring? We go then from that to his 9-month weigh-in. And at this point, his goal was to weigh in at 205 pounds. Sure enough, he kills it again, and he weighs in at 202. So he's lost 30 pounds rather than the 27 pounds that he was aiming to lose. And even bigger than that, Chris points out that at this point, he's already lost over 50% of his body weight. I mean, really? That's a huge goal. That's just insane. And I think he all along wasn't really thinking in percentage, thinking about the percentage of his body weight. And so to hear that, he lost half of himself. That's just crazy to me. I just think, I don't know, I was shocked. But after learning that, Chris then surprises him that because he's lost half of himself, there is no reason a prosthetic cannot fit around his body at this point. But not only will he be getting a prosthetic, he's not going to be strapping on that old one that he had that doesn't actually do anything. He is getting a state-of-the-art custom prosthetic, and this just absolutely blows my mind. It's robotic, and it reads the muscles to control the individual digits of the hand. Have you seen anything like that, Stephen?
Yeah, they're pretty amazing.
Ugh, you have. I haven't. I'm just like...
They have ones that go into your mind now, and actually you can control them with signals.
With your mind?
Yeah, they're not very...
It's crazy.
They're not as efficient as the muscle ones right now, but they're still like... I mean, this is all in the last 25, 30 years.
Okay, well, then I am so behind on the times. But either way, he finds out that he's actually, there's only 2 other people in the world that actually have this particular prosthetic arm. So he is one of those. But it was amazing because they were able to just kind of hook him up to it right away. It read the muscles just like through his skin. It wasn't like it needed to be, there wasn't anything that needed to be inserted under the skin. It was like he took off his shirt, they sent something against his skin, and they said, you know, flex this muscle, or maybe, I don't know, I wouldn't even know how to do it because I have no idea what muscles in like your pecs that control your fingers. It was just absolutely amazing to see them just push something against his skin. He's looking down at his hand and to actually just be able to move fingers. That was a huge moment. And I mean, one of the biggest moments for him, think about it, he's lost 50% of his body weight. He's not only has he learned how to ride a bike, he's rode 43 miles, and now he gets the hand back that he lost, and that's exactly what Chris tells him, and I just think that's a huge stepping stone. But with every stepping stone, sometimes there are just some other setbacks. He goes then to his doctor, who realizes that he's malnourished and will not approve of the skin removal surgery. So even though he's, you know, hit all these milestones and made huge accomplishments, he's finding that he is just as malnourished as some people are in countries like in Africa or places where this is a common thing. And when the doctor actually asked him if he's been sticking to his nutrition plan, Ryan stumbles through his answer. It is so obvious that he is lying, but he almost doesn't even know how to lie. He just can't even get through the words. He can't even make up an excuse. That's how bad it is. And he finally admits to, you know, missing meals every now and then. You know, I got to do what I got to do if I want to hit this weight loss goal. And if there is any mistake to make, that's going to be it. And if there's anything that's really going to hurt you, and I think it's the one thing that people, they don't know how bad it really sets them back, that's going to be it. Not eating enough calories, not eating the right foods, and thinking that because you're not eating, that you're saving yourself calories and that you're naturally going to lose weight quicker. And in reality and in the grand scheme of things, we know that that will definitely hurt your metabolism. And if you hurt your metabolism, you're really hurting your goals because you're not going to lose weight as quickly as you can. Once you get onto the right nutrition path and the right exercise path, you kind of become like a machine. You know, you're like a well-oiled machine that can kind of you're eating the right foods, and you can actually eat a lot because you're burning a lot, and you've built your muscle to naturally burn those calories. So you're really just kind of becoming more lean, and you're defining your muscles. And these are all things that I think at this point he should know. And he says he's too paranoid about eating too much that he sometimes misses meals. And what's really sad is that the doctor says, not only am I not approving you for surgery, but I'm not approving you to even continue with this program. So, you know, for the last phase of this program, he's not really even approved to do his exercise routine. So Chris naturally is frustrated because he's already had this conversation with him. And Chris has to tell him, you know, at this point, you really just need to focus on your nutrition. I'm not even going to ask you to focus on the exercise or focus on the numbers. You probably need to, I mean, I don't think he said this, but I imagine that he would have had to obviously dial back his exercise routine, and Chris really couldn't give him, you know, the guidance that he needed, but just had to focus on eating the right foods, you know, and making that his goal. And I think that's something that everybody struggles with, eating just enough, not eating too little, and obviously not eating too much, because then you go right back where you started. So this looks like it was going to be maybe one of his biggest challenge. You know, it was like the one thing that he was avoiding, the one thing he was kind of running from, and the one thing he was really, like you said, paranoid about.
It's tough though. Like seriously,
of course.
This is the challenge I'm going through right now, is because I can't, like my trainer is like, you need 5 meals a day. You need 5, like, have a chicken breast like every 3 hours. Like, you need to do this stuff to actually get to your goal. If
you don't eat a chicken breast every 3 hours.
No,
Do you?
No, I don't.
Okay, good. But
No,
I mean,
but
that
like, they tell you need 5 small meals a day if you're
Right.
trying to really keep your body to what it is. It is a machine, and what you
Yeah.
put in, you get out of it. So the diet is a huge part of it, and you can
It's
starve to
fuel.
death, even be fat. Like you
It's
can be fat
fuel.
and starve to death.
yes, it is fuel. You know, I mean, your car needs fuel to keep going. You need to be putting the right fuel in your body.
But look at like someone like me. I think 5'11", 185, 180
Mm-hmm.
or something. I need probably 3,200 calories a day. Like that's what I'm told I need to
That's a
take in.
lot.
It's a lot, but at the same time, you look at it, you're like, that's not that much, because people think of Big Macs, like, oh, they're 1,500 calories. Like,
right.
But you need to take in 1,500 calories of a lean meat and like vegetables and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to get that much caloric intake from healthy foods, and that's what people don't really realize. They think that even if they have like 3 healthy meals, that can still only be 1,100, 1,200 calories.
Yeah.
Even-
Well, and you know, everybody, I think the important thing here is that everybody's different. And I think the most important thing that you can do is really kind of educate yourself on what is the right kind of foods to be eating. But like you said, you know, it's hard to maybe hit some calorie goals when you're eating really, really lean foods. But, you know, just educating yourself and then also learning what is right for your body, because not everybody's going to be eating 3,200 calories or whatever that crazy number is. That's a lot.
Well, that's if you're
That's
weight
if
training.
you are working. Yes, that's what I was going to say. You need to be working out a lot, because you will obviously be burning a ton of those calories, and then the rest is kind of used to build your muscle. So that is a lot of calories. I think the most important thing for yourself is to kind of look into the BMI calendars and kind of see what is the right amount of calories that you should be eating for your activity level. So this is something that, you know, he kind of has to take into account, and he struggles with. But we do see him kind of tackle that, and he starts to focus on it. And I was really hoping that all his like culinary skills would really kick in here, and he'd be like making this amazing healthy food. And we did see him making some food that looked absolutely fantastic. But I don't know. I don't know that kind of passion, you know, kicked back in, which I would love to find out. I would love to find out if he went back to culinary school, but I don't know. Chris, Ryan, if you guys are watching, please let us know. I want the update. So that's his last phase, is really just focusing on nutrition, and that's all we see of him. And then he comes back to the final weigh-in at Lambeau Stadium, and it's kind of amazing. He walks out, and he is like a skinny stud. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So he comes out, and just all these amazing things are kind of revealed to him. Not only do we see him with his prosthetic arm, he's got his blazer on, he's looking good. You can tell he is walking with confidence. But then again, Donald Driver reappears and comes out and surprises him and brings him a Green Bay Packers jersey, this time smaller, because he's lost so much weight that the one that he got at the very beginning obviously is probably like could fit at least 2 of him, maybe 2.5, 3. So he comes back, gives him a new jersey, and then at that point, Chris also reveals to him that he got his nutrition back on track. He's no longer malnourished. He's as healthy as can possibly be, and he's now also approved for skin surgery, the skin removal surgery. Also, he's given a Walmart grill. He's given a $25,000 gift card to Walmart. That is amazing. The things that you could do with $25,000 to Walmart. And of course, that's the goal. They want to encourage him to create a healthy lifestyle for the rest of his life. It's not just for the rest of the year, which they gave him, you know, a gift card for groceries earlier, but now it's just to really set yourself up for success and to have money that's going to last you for a while. So he gets all of that. Then he steps on the scale, and his goal was 195. He weighs in at 193, losing 53% of his body weight. And he's just absolutely an inspiration, completely mind-blowing, and so it was absolutely fantastic to watch. So that concludes our episode. Any last thoughts, Stephen?
Nope, just looked him up on Facebook. You
Yeah.
can book him for like for like speaking events and things like that. Like that's his new job now, which
We
I
need to
assume
get
it
him
might
in
be.
here.
So we could probably get him on the line next week if we really wanted to. And
Let's do it.
his
I want to do
name
it.
is Ryan Salzville.
Yes, I know that.
Well, yeah, of course you know that. I'm just, you can find him on his website at ryansalzville.com and at Twitter at @RyanS_EMWLE. There you go.
Awesome. I'm so excited. Well, he was absolute inspiration. And like I said before, you guys hit us up on iTunes with your comments and also on YouTube and let us know what you thought of the episode. And we also see that next week, it's going to be a married couple. So that's definitely going to be interesting. So make sure that you guys tune in next week on Tuesday right here at AfterBuzz.com, Studio A. Join me, maybe Lena, maybe Steven. We'll kind of see who joins the conversation. See you guys then.
Where can we find you, Lauren?
Oh, you can find me, of course, at Lo_Vias on Instagram and on Twitter at @Lo_Vias.
Cool.
See you guys next week. Thanks, Steven.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.